Millionaire single dad witnessed a stranger holding his lost child. What she whispered left him froze. The mall was crowded that Saturday afternoon, a blur of chatter, footsteps, and distant music. Daniel Carter, a wealthy entrepreneur known for his flawless business instincts, moved quickly through the crowd, scanning every face. His heart pounded in his chest. Just minutes ago, his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, had been right beside him, her small hand tucked into his. One distracted moment, answering a work call, and she was gone. Lily. His voice cracked as he shouted her name. The world around him blurred into noise, his expensive suit clinging uncomfortably as sweat beaded along his forehead. He was a man who'd made multi-million-dollar deals with steady hands, but at that moment, Daniel felt like a helpless child himself. Then, he saw her. At the far end of the food court, a woman stood holding Lily in her arms. Lily's small face was buried in the woman's shoulder, her tiny arms clinging desperately. The woman wasn't dressed like anyone who belonged in Daniel's world of tailored suits and sleek cars. Her faded jeans and oversized sweater looked worn, her hair hastily tied back. But it wasn't her clothes that made Daniel pause, it was the way she held his daughter. As if Lily was the most precious thing in the world. He rushed toward them, his voice breaking. Lily. Lily turned, her tear-streaked face lighting up. Daddy. The woman gently set her down, and Lily ran into his arms. Daniel knelt, hugging her so tightly he feared he might never let go. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm here now. You're safe. When he finally looked up at the woman, ready to thank her, she gave him a small, almost shy smile. But before he could speak, she leaned slightly toward him and whispered words that froze him in place. She kept saying she thought you forgot about her. Daniel's throat tightened. He glanced at Lily, whose head rested trustingly on his shoulder, and felt a pang deep in his chest. Those words, forgot about her, hit him harder than any business failure or public criticism ever could. Thank you, he managed to say, his voice low, almost hoarse. You found her, you kept her safe. The woman shook her head gently. She found me. I was sitting alone when she came up, crying. She said her dad was busy and she didn't know if you'd come back. I just stayed with her until you did. Daniel swallowed hard. He was suddenly aware of how many weekends he'd spent glued to his phone, how many moments he'd told Lily to wait, just a minute, while he finished an email or took another call. He had lost his wife years ago, and raising Lily alone was the most important job he had, yet somehow, work had still stolen pieces of his time with her. He shifted Lily in his arms and looked at the woman. I owe you. You don't owe me anything, she interrupted softly. Just be there for her. That's all she needs. Her words were so simple, yet they felt like a command from the universe itself. Before Daniel could ask her name or say more, she gave Lily a small wave and melted into the crowd, disappearing as quickly as she'd appeared. That night, Daniel tucked Lily into bed, sitting beside her until she fell asleep. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead and felt the weight of the day settle deep inside him. She had been scared, thinking he'd forgotten her, and in a way, maybe she was right. Not in his heart, never there, but in the moments that mattered most, he had let distractions win. Over the next weeks, everything changed. Daniel started leaving his phone in his car when he picked Lily up from school. He blocked off weekends in his calendar as unavailable for work. They went to the park, baked messy cookies, read bedtime stories twice just because she asked. He didn't just promise to be there, he was. One crisp autumn morning months later, they were in that same mall again, this time holding hands tightly. Near the entrance, Daniel spotted a familiar face, the woman in the faded sweater, now carrying a grocery bag. Wait here, Lily, he said gently before approaching her. She looked surprised when he stopped in front of her. I never got to thank you properly, Daniel said, his voice warm but steady. You didn't just find my daughter that day. You found me, too. You reminded me what matters. The woman smiled softly. Looks like you didn't forget this time. She glanced at Lily, who was happily swinging her little legs nearby. That's thanks enough. Daniel handed her a small envelope. I know you didn't ask for anything, but I learned you volunteer at the shelter downtown. This is for them, and for you. Her eyes widened, but before she could speak, Daniel added, you gave me back my daughter's trust. No amount of money could ever repay that, but I hope this helps you keep doing what you do. She accepted it quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. You have no idea how much this means. As Daniel walked back to Lily, her small hand slipping into his, he felt lighter than he had in years. Not because of the donation, not because he'd done a good deed, but because he'd finally understood something priceless. Success wasn't in his bank account or his achievements. It was in moments like this, with Lily laughing beside him, knowing she would never have to wonder if he'd come back. And somewhere in the bustle of life, Daniel knew a stranger in a worn sweater had changed 2 lives that day, without ever asking for anything in return. This is crafted to be heartfelt, relatable, and perfect for a spoken YouTube narration that runs about 4 to 5 minutes. It opens with tension, builds emotional stakes, delivers a surprising and touching turning point, and ends with a warm, inspiring resolution. If you'd like, I can also adapt this into a more cinematic YouTube storytelling script with natural pauses and visual cues for better audience engagement.